now for, well, almost 2 years now publicly. How many things did I call and not happen? Very, very, very small number of that. But how many things were right and correct and where the market went to? You can't reasonably expect to be like that in the beginning. And when you learn from someone, when I was a martial artist, I wanted to be as good as the guy that was teaching me, and then better. That's what I wanted. Anything that they did that was impressive, I needed to do it better than them. Why? Because I had this deep ingrained necessity for me to be significant, because while I was growing up in Cardboard City, I was part of what we considered white trash. We lived in low income. And I got in fist fights and stomped the shit out of people that thought they were better than me. I curb stomped people. You know what that is? Where you stomp their ass, you beat them, you drag them over to a curb, you open their mouth up with their teeth on the edge of the curb, and you stomp the back of their head. I've done that before. And the sound that makes, you'll never forget it. Those are things that I've done as a kid with people older than me because they talked down to me. They acted like they were better than me. So what drives me, and still today, is that deep scar. I was the guy on the other side of the tracks growing up. I didn't come into this world with a silver spoon in my ass. I didn't have that. Everything was a hard thing to do. And it took a lot longer than I wanted it to do. And it was very difficult. I had a lot of opposition around me. People would try to tell me, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to just, amount to the same thing we do. And then I went to school, and they tried to talk me out of that. And they said, you're not going to get good grades. And I got great grades. Constantly, the enemy constantly will work on you to try to discourage you. And if you're strong enough that you have the motivation that keeps you going, when you're finally there, he's really going to try. Because you've done it. You finally climbed to that moment where now you're going to see the proof. You're going to finally get that testimony that you can hold on to and say, nobody can take this from me. And some of you are going to discover that motivation that got you there, which everybody needs it. I'm not trying to discourage that's not a good thing. It is a good thing. But there's an event, there's a phenomenon that takes place where once you're there, you can't handle the pressure. And you throw out all the rules. You don't wait for the setup. You think that it's going to be stripped from you. You worked so hard to get to this moment. Now here's your first shot. The first shot to use the information that you've been studying. Now you can make gainful profits if it's correctly done. But you don't have the experience yet to lean on. And you see a sudden quick movement, which really isn't that much. Nothing's changed in the trade setup. But in your mind, because you're so keyed up, that motivation, you're hopped up. You're ready to go. You're that guy that all your friends are around. Fight, fight, fight. If they weren't there, you'd probably shake hands with the guy and say, you know what? I apologize, man. It's got out of hand. It's just forgive me for saying whatever I said or did whatever I did to you. You can't do that now because they've incited that rage. You've become lustful for blood. You need to do this now. And something happens where that motivation becomes impulse. And you don't use your model and you press the button. As soon as the button is pressed, you're regretting it. Because now you just entered the uncertainty with no plan, no entry, no PD array. You chased the price. And everything you've heard me say comes rushing into your brain and you're thinking, oh man, This is that thing he talked about. Now that trade seems like it's going to choke the life out of you. Maybe you start hyperventilating. You don't realize it yet. So you start feeling your fingers and your hands and your arms start tingling. All of a sudden you start feeling your heart palpitate. Feels like you can't breathe. Doesn't feel like there's any air in the room. Why is it so hard to breathe? That's anxiety. Now you're faint. You're feeling the effects of the adrenaline in your body, and you're standing still. It's like a Ferrari in neutral, running with the accelerating pedal to the floor. It's not good for the engine. And now you're worrying about what you're feeling bodily. And then cortisol is going to release. And that hormone makes you feel like you're going to die. Now, how can you be watching price, managing it, and what you should be doing, focusing on your model, if you think you're having a stroke or a heart attack or about to pass out or throw up? I've been there. I've been there, and I've been there while driving a truck over the Key Bridge in high winds, panicking because I'm watching my Quotrek tell me that there's absolutely nothing I can do, and I'm nowhere near a payphone to get out. You can't understand that. You don't understand that because you're so spoiled with the information and technology we have today where we can just press a button, get in, get out. Seconds. Seconds. Be on the other side of a bridge, and then someone goes and has a typical thing that anybody else would have normally while they're doing construction on the bridge. You only have one lane, and then their engine dies, and you're on a trade. You can't get out, and you can't move, and you lose your account that day because you thought you were smart enough not to use a stop loss. And Copper said, "Not today." That's the stuff that I lived through. That I did that stuff. So there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you, "This is where I made this much money. This is where I made this much money. This is where I made that much money. I did this. I did that. I did this." Nobody is comfortable telling you where they messed it up. They want to hide it. They want to delete it like it didn't happen. Most of my mentoring is telling you what it's going to be really like. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't pretend that I didn't come from humble beginnings where it was very hard, next to impossible, and I quit dozens of times. That's what I call it. But folks that's been around before a while just know that this meant code word for I need a break. I need another job to get some money scratched up because I didn't have a lot of it. But that motivation that leads you to the dance and you're watching the charts, you got to guard your mind and really stick your heels in, dig them in deep and say, okay, yeah, that button's right there. I can push it. I can push that button. Any time I want to push that button, it's going to get me in the trade. But am I entering the trade based on my model with the logic in mind that I'm entering in the opposing direction of where I see the profit? So if I'm bullish, I got to be entering when prices drops. It's got to be dropping. If it doesn't drop, I'm chasing. I can't do that. You can't do that. When you do these types of trades and you're buying while markets are moving away from your expected directional draw or where your limit order to take profit or parcels are, number one, you're going to overcome a lot of fear that most traders have because they have confirmation bias. Every trader out there goes through a stage of they need to have confirmation bias. They have to know that they're in the trade and they're on side.